So it's the Mexican City Grand Prix weekend at a track where Sergio Perez famously crashed out last year, so let's review the race. So let's do the news and all of the controversy following the United States Grand Prix battle between Verstappen and Norris. Of course, there was an appeal. McLaren tried to get Norris back to third place, but it was completely ignored by the FIA, so it still stands. Of course, I've said my thoughts on it in the past. Let's just go straight into FP1 then, and Alex Albon stupidly blamed Ollie Behrman for a crash in the opening part of the session. Ollie Behrman was driving for Ferrari, if anyone wanted to know. But of course, we have to talk about the rookies, because it's FP1 in Mexico City, and this time we got Kimi Antonelli, and this time he didn't actually crash 10 seconds into the session. Good job, Antonelli. We also had Robert Schwartzman in a Sauber, and he also later got a 5-place grid penalty. But he isn't even going to be an F1, so it doesn't matter. Meanwhile, Felipe Drugovich, got a late run with Aston Martin. He's had many free practice sessions with them, but there's no way he's ever going to join them as long as they've got the GOAT Stroll in their car. We also got Paul Ward, IndyCar driver in the McLaren as well. However, speaking of the rookies, a bit of debris came off Kimi Antonelli's car and it caused out the first of 2 red flags in the session. So, like I said, there was going to be multiple of those red flags. Oscar Piastri slid wide in the middle sector of the racetrack, but that also didn't cause a red flag. Overall, it was a pretty uneventful FP1, but Verstappen and Carlos Sainz went wheel-to-wheel soon after. Of course, Carlos Sainz qualified on the front row here, Verstappen third here last year, so it was at least getting them used to what was going to happen in race day. George Russell, meanwhile, was the fastest man on the racetrack as he topped FP1. That lasted very well, because he crashed in FP2 straight away anyway. So that was a big crash, and it was another Mercedes crash. Literally every single session now, a Mercedes is in the wall. George Russell crashed in qualifying, and obviously Lewis Hamilton crashed in the US Grand Prix. So also what was going around, Pierre Gasly went off the track in his Alpine. Pierre Gasly managed to qualify in Alpine's best result of 2024 so far. However, who wasn't getting the best result of 2024 so far was Max Verstappen, who spent the entire session pretty much in the garage and was 20th, as he failed to set a representative lap time, as Red Bull really struggled with Verstappen complaining of no rear end. Speaking of rear end, Liam Lawson slid off again and struggling with his rear end too. It was extremely uncomfortable for the New Zealander, who was trying to get into Red Bull next year in partner, said Max Verstappen. However, at the end of the day, topping the session was the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, but this entire session was 90 minutes long because they were testing Pirelli's 2025 tyre range. And that's all I have to say about that, and let's go into FP3, in a session topped by Oscar Piastri in a Papaya McLaren 1-2. Lando Norris was narrowly behind his Australian young teammate, but Oscar Piastri was frustrated early on when Carlos Sainz blocked Oscar Piastri when he was on a quick lap, and that made Oscar Piastri very, very unhappy indeed, or at least as unhappy as it's possible for him to get. Also going on in FP2 was Sergio Perez, who went straight into Las Vegas and his next career destination as he slid wide with a Red Bull that wasn't adapting particularly well to this circuit, but they've had terrible free practice sessions before and they always come back on race day. We had a bit of deja vu as Pierre Gasly went off the track again at the exact same corner in his Alpine. The session ended though with a spin for Liam Lawson halfway through. The said New Zealander driver has been struggling generally with his rear end all weekend long, but Yuki Tsunoda has been in the top 10 in free practice and looks strong. Also, what happened in FP3 was this hilarious moment. I don't even know what the Ferrari engineer was thinking. Let's go to qualifying then, and the big names out was Oscar Piastri. And there was the familiar names like Joe Granier and the almighty shock that certainly wasn't Sergio Perez. And this is going to let the door wide open for Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship if they can get their work together. Also out then in Q1 was Franco Colapinto and Esteban Ocon. I don't know if Esteban Ocon actually has the upgrades this weekend, but I rather guess he does. At the end of Q2, there was a yellow flag in Sector 3 as Kevin Magnussen, who's never made it through to Q3 up until last weekend's United States Grand Prix, made it 2 in a row. Also, what made it 2 in a row was the fact that Yuki Tsunoda crashed for the second time this season. He crashed in Hungary qualifying, and he now crashed in Mexico City qualifying. This almost certainly would have knocked out Pierre Gasly, as RB have been looking competitive all weekend long, but the RBs were separated by not much at all. In the end, it was Liam Lawson out with Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, and of course Valtteri Bottas, who I forgot to say in my predictions video. I actually expected them to do pretty well, considering they got to Q3 here last year. In Q3 though, Carlos Sainz was dominant. Verstappen got his time deleted initially, but it managed to come through to second place, with Lando Norris in third position. At the end of the day, Russell had qualified Hamilton, Leclerc was only fourth on the grid, and Kevin Magnussen qualified in seventh for his best result of the year. However, we know how typical a start can be at Mexico, so let's hope Carlos Sainz can actually maintain it. Fun fact though, we almost have a different pole sitter every single year since 2015. So in 2015, Rosberg pole, 2016 Hamilton pole, 2017 pole Vettel, 2018 pole Daniel Ricciardo, 2019 pole was Ferrari Charles Leclerc, 2021 was Valtteri Bottas, 2022 was Max Verstappen, 2023 was Charles Leclerc's second pole, and obviously this year Carlos Sainz. But pretty sure every single man who's been on pole doesn't actually convert it into a win since about 2016. All I have to say is good luck, Carlos, and let's head into it then, the Mexican City Grand Prix. Here it is then, So then the race got underway, and Carlos Sainz didn't get the greatest launch in the entire planet, and instead Verstappen decided he was going to take the lead at the first corner of the first lap. However, Sainz tried to brave around the outside, but meanwhile there was chaos in the background, involving Alexander Albon and Yuki Tsunoda. Fun fact, this is Yuki Tsunoda's second lap 1 DNF at Mexico. His first was 2021. Sainz let the place back to Max Verstappen, similar to last year with Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen, and then after that, Sainz decided he was going to pounce after the safety car restart. Verstappen and Sainz went wheel to wheel at the first corner, and Sainz took the lead from Max Verstappen. Sainz then started pulling away from the Red Bull, but meanwhile behind, Lando Norris had to go past Max Verstappen. Verstappen forced him off the track the first time and earned something which Verstappen is quite a stranger to be honest, a 10-second time penalty. Max Verstappen was completely shocked about it and decided he was going to go and force Lando Norris again off. But before then, Norris took the lead when he went off the track and had to hand the place back to Carlos Sainz. And then Verstappen was so infuriated with his penalty, he forced Lando Norris off again, should I say. Verstappen was then behind both of them, and Verstappen was under pressure from Lando Norris again when the pit stop race started kicking in, as the Mercedes decided to fight with Lewis Hamilton ahead of George Russell until he wasn't. Russell did a brilliant move around the outside and Hamilton was complaining of understeering his car. Meanwhile, Fernando Alonso was out of the race in his 400th Grand Prix, and I was quite sad to see that, to be honest. So Fernando Alonso out of the Grand Prix, disappointment for him, and has allowed Lance Stroll to beat him once again. I actually was really sad when Fernando Alonso retired because he's had such a long career, and that on his 400th Grand Prix he had to retire. That was a shame. However, what wasn't a shame was how bad Sergio Perez was doing. It was his home Grand Prix actually, so to be honest, that was pretty sad too. And he was getting pretty much a war really between him and Liam Lawson. Of course, they're fighting each other over who's going to get that Red Bull seat next year, and Perez eventually fell to last. Falling down to last was something Charles Leclerc had an intention to do, as he nearly crashed out of the race dramatically late on as he handed Lando Norris second place. Meanwhile, the Mercedes decided it was time to fight again, and after 20 laps of absolute nerve-wracking wheel-to-wheel action, Lewis Hamilton did finally win out against George Russell, and it does mean that I think what we've found out in this race weekend is that Russell is faster than Hamilton in one lap, but Hamilton is still the quicker Mercedes in race trim. However, Carlos Sainz was the fastest Ferrari all weekend long and went on to win an amazing Grand Prix, as Norris came second and Leclerc took the fastest lap, as Perez pitted as well to try and get the fastest lap, but unsurprisingly, he wasn't as fast as the Ferrari. There's now 29 points between Ferrari and McLaren in the Constructors' Championship, and Norris is now only 47 points behind Max Verstappen in the World Championship. What will happen though, we have Brazil next weekend, and I have my predictions out at some point today or tomorrow. So thanks so much for watching, and of course this has been another race where more controversy has happened. I'll see you next time on F1 Hub.